And we're back after a brief break. You're watching South Texas Crossfire. Special thanks to the Lopez family. Carlos Lopez, good friend of mine, and you guessed it, the Ted Turner of South Texas Broadcasting. We're here with, if you're going to vote for anybody, vote for a good name. And we're going to be asking for your vote for Sam Houston. How are you, Sam?
Good to be here, Joe. It's nice to be here in Corpus.
Well, if you could tell everybody what you're running for and what your vision is for Texas, please.
Sure, and it's important you said my name's Sam Houston. I'm not related to Sam Houston that people think about, but there's a lot of substance to my name, and I want to talk about that today. And I'm running for Texas Attorney General.
Tell me a little bit about your family and where you grew up, where you went to college, all that good stuff.
Right. Thanks. I like to say I've lived in Houston for 26 years now, practiced law there, and my family lives there. I have a wife and 2 children. There's 2 teenagers, so I'm going through that joy right now.
Plus campaigning.
Plus running a law practice. So I
say,
I'm
headache.
not busy. I'm not busy right now.
Yeah.
I grew up in a small town in West Texas, Colorado City, Texas. It's out between Midland and Abilene.
All right.
My parents had a White's Auto Store. Do you remember White's Auto?
I remember the auto stores, yes, sir.
Sure. I grew up working in White's Auto Store in Colorado City, Texas. I like to think about that. So I always tell people when I'm on this campaign, I've got 26 years of big city law practice, but a small town work ethic and people ethic, which I think is important for this office.
Let me ask you this. We've got, a very important job, which is the Attorney General, but a lot of people just don't understand exactly what the Attorney General does. On the one hand, they see them sometimes on big, high-profile cases, got an army of staff, they think, that's the perception, and then sometimes we see them trying to prevent healthcare fraud. Also working with Texas Rangers. I mean, it's just a big responsibility. So if you could kind of break down for the voter what exactly the job description is.
It's the attorney for the state of Texas. It's a large agency. I think there's 700 lawyers that work in the Attorney General's office. And that's why I want to really take the office, is to do some of the things you talked about, to focus more on the day-to-day affairs. Joe, my disagreement with the office, and certainly the way I think my opponent would run the office, is that there's too much of the high-profile politics in the office. And it's become too much where there's, questions about we're going to sue the federal government, or we're going to continue this suit with the school over school finance. I want to get away from some of those things and resolve things like the school finance lawsuit. But my office wants to focus on the day-to-day things that help the citizens of Corpus Christi, like consumer protection, like a good environmental section that stops polluters. Not that we prevent business, but we stop polluters. And then the day-to-day representation, child support, make sure that we're doing child support correctly and not tearing up families, but getting the money and the dollars that need to be used. Those are the things that people see that I think are important, that I want to take to the Attorney General's office.
If you can pinpoint at least one or two things, what made you run? I know, obviously you're busy with family, you're busy with your law practice. It takes courage. It takes a lot of backbone. You got to have a thick skin, thicker than an attorney, I would argue, when you run for office.
We're already kind of lizardly thick anyways, what they say, right?
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, running for the top lawyer in Texas, what really finally made that tick for you that said, I'm going to run?
Several things. But probably the most important is that, again, we're both of us are lawyers, and you're a lawyer, I know, and so we're lawyers.
Yes, sir.
And I take my profession very seriously, and I think that it's important. And I've spent my life trying cases, doing appeals, doing all the things that lawyers do. But what I pride myself on is being able to resolve disputes, doing the right thing for the clients. Clients may say, I want to go to trial. That's not always the right thing. The right thing may be to get some resolution and trying to get clients to do what's in their best interest. And what prompted me to run for this position is that I watched what was happening, watched the statements, Greg Abbott said that his thing he was most proud of was, I get up every morning and I sue the federal government. Well, those are the kind of that rhetoric, and I heard about the efforts that were made to redistrict, to benefit the Republican Party, to side with one party. And I felt like, that's not what the office is about. It shouldn't be about Democrats. but it certainly shouldn't be about Republicans, which is what it's been about for a long time now. And so it prompted me to run is that I want to make it a lawyer's office, a private practice office. You know, it's a big government office, and I know it's different than private practice, but let's run it more like a business and do things that are right for everybody, not headline grabbing cases. Let's not talk about things that propel you to the next office. Let's make sure that we have people protected in the Consumer Protection Division. Let's make sure that we have good open records, make sure people have access to records. Let's make sure that our child support's state of the art but remembers people. And do the things, like I said, insist local law enforcement office and beef up those divisions and not have an office that's focused on politics and big headline grabbing issues. That's really what prompted me to run, and it's important. It was important then, but it's even more important now, which I'll tell you about in a minute.
How about you mentioned a little bit about the environment, you know, like down here in South Texas, fracking, the shale, everything we're doing, it's a fine balance in Texas. And it's, you know, we've got people that still say the jury's out on global warming in Texas.
Right.
We're having a drought, not because of global warming, just, you know, we're hitting a streak of bad luck, you know, and water and oil and all our precious resources. What's the balance there, and what role would you play as the AG to kind of keep all the burners going without overcooking el arroz? You know? Well,
and that's, you just used the word balance. See, you know, and I think the Republicans try to posture all us Democrats as being against business. We're not. We're for good business. I'm for good businesses coming to Texas, but I'm for businesses that don't pollute. I'm for businesses that don't cheat people. I'm for, you know, and again, the fracking, the things that are good, oil and gas, it's good for business, it's good, but let's make sure that companies that are fracking are doing it correctly, and we watch out so that we do protect the environment. Let's make sure that we don't have polluters. You know, let's don't focus so much on fighting about whether there is or isn't global warming, but let's focus on getting good regulations so we stop the polluters and fair regulations. Those are the things that I think need to be done. We need balance. The one side, the business side, Republicans, they've had it for so long, and I think they've forgotten the people. Let's remember the people. I'm not going to forget businesses. I'm not out there to do anything like that or hurt the economy, because that hurts the people. But there's a better way, a long-term way, and a solution that can benefit all. But you got to believe in the way the government works, and you got to be not a political attorney general, but an attorney for an attorney general.
Well, you said you're going to bring it back home here in a minute, and I kind of interjected the oil because a lot of people ask me about that. If I interview you, please ask about, you know, and I'm glad you addressed that issue. But you said you're going to bring it back home to your point why you're running.
Sure.
And in the last couple of minutes we've got, I'd really think that's important for the voter, Republican, Democrat, Independent, Tea Party, to hear you out.
Right, because no matter whether you're Republican, Democrat, whatever your philosophy, you want an attorney general you can trust. So when I started out at this, I wasn't sure who my Republican opponent would be. And this isn't about mudslinging, but you need to evaluate who your attorney is when you look at someone to be your attorney general. My opponent is Ken Paxton, a state senator. He has a history of ethical violations. He has violated our security laws in a way that's a felony. There's been a criminal complaint filed against him. Most people say that there'll be a decision made on whether to indict him after the election. But I can tell you he's basically admitted to a felony. If you read what he's agreed to with the Texas Securities Board, he admitted all the elements of a felony. So if he's elected, we're looking at either having an attorney general who's indicted and convicted of a felony, which is bad because he wouldn't be eligible, or even worse, he's not indicted and convicted of a felony, and it's an individual with a history of ethical and criminal violations who's then serving as our top law enforcement person.
And
that's not a good thing for Texas. And whether you're Republican, Democrat, you know, nobody's perfect, but I can tell you, I've been out talking about my campaign to you, to anybody that'll listen. We've been open. We'll run the office effectively and with trust. I don't think he can do that.
Well, and didn't mean to interrupt, but
No.
Are you getting out, you know, you're obviously getting out a positive message about your campaign, but are people hearing about this ethical, potentially legal violation that your opponent has has done?
I think so. I think people can Google and read about him, read about in the papers. Every paper in the state has endorsed me so far, all the major papers, the Chronicle, the Morning News, the Corpus Christi Caller-Times. I'm not going to leave them out.
Steve Arnold, Miss Avery, we love you.
Austin American-Statesman, Fort Worth Star-Telegram, and the San Antonio Express-News have all endorsed me, and they've brought out, in addition to the positive things, which I spent a long time talking to you about, which I'm not about just don't elect him, but it is about elect me because of my experience. But a lot of them do bring out his problems because, quite frankly, it's relevant. It's very relevant to consider all of those things I brought out. And the most important thing is that he won't talk about it. He won't defend himself now on what we've said. He's just quiet. He won't debate me. He won't really, he won't do much of anything. He's hiding and hoping that Republicans just sweep in, and that's not right. That's not fair. And the way you run your campaign is the way you're going to run your office. If he's not open, if he's not honest, if he won't defend himself, well, how's he going to defend the state later on?
Well, you certainly broke the stereotype that Republicans like to throw out there, that everybody's a flaming left-winger that runs as a Democrat. I myself have 2 businesses, and my wife does too. And, just as many Democrats have businesses as Republicans. And knocking on a couple of 100,000 doors here in South Texas, primarily Latinos. What would you like to tell them? Why should they vote for you over your opponent?
Because you know what? You can trust me. I'm fair. I'm looking out after the interests of all Texans, not just Republicans or Democrats, but everybody. And I want to run the office like I've run a 26-year successful law practice, good and efficiently, and give good advice to my clients. That's my promise, and you know what? You're not hearing that from my opponent. So whether you're Republican, Democrat, I think it's important to go forth, go vote. Vote for me. Vote Sam Houston. It's easy to remember. And I think that with this thing, we've got a slate of candidates on the Democratic side that we're all getting all of the endorsements from. We're getting all the support from Wendy Davis to Leticia to myself to Mike Collier to Steve Brown to John Cook. It's a very impressive array, and I'm proud to serve with them. But I'm running my race very hard too. All of us are out there, but pulling together, I think we can do better for Texas, and I hope the voters remember that.
Well, you heard it. Sam Houston running to be your Attorney General, and magic number and Facebook and website they can find you at. Where is that?
SamHoustonForTexas.com.
All right, you heard it. SamHoustonForTexas.com. If you want a yard sign, get involved, get people out there to vote, and make sure early voting and vote Election Day. And we'll be back. Thank you, Mr. Houston. Good luck on your campaign.
Thanks for having me. Good to be in Corpus.
All right, thank you.